Good afternoon, everybody. It is time for yet another episode of Trust Issues. It is the 7th episode, and we'll talk about this again later. We are having a little bit of a backstage discussion just about adjusting the time slot. First of all, this is my fault. It's worked like to prove concept and all that kind of stuff, but like man, the middle of the day on this, which is my longest streaming day, is rough. And I was just like, you know what, it's my day off. Like, might as well put 8 hours of streaming on the same day. But we might
possibly have to do
to the well, I know nothing productive. But anyway, so we'll keep you guys posted. We're looking at maybe Tuesday evening. So if you have any thoughts, let me know. But before we sent the show live backstage, we were just talking about Emily, your entrance to TikTok with some specifically filmed for the platform content, breaking down some of the things we've been covering lately. And I wanted to give you the first prop because I've been doing this for 5 years. I have filmed thousands of videos, and I don't think ever one single time have I been able to one-shot the full thing. And so far, all of your videos have not a single edit. You just like sit down, turn it on, one shot. And I love it because one, nothing to me communicates like depth of understanding of a topic other than someone who can just like sit there and talk to you about it with no need to cut anything out for like 3, 4, 5 minutes. And actually the individual who first got me into wanting to create content is this creator who sadly no longer runs the channel, Beau of the Fifth Column on YouTube. And that was it. He would sit in his garage. The first opening shot of every video was him turning on the camera and then pulling his hand back, sitting there. He talked to you for 5 to 15 minutes with no edits whatsoever. And then the ending shot is him turning off the camera. And it was that every time. He did that for years. And it was just like some of the most in-depth, nuanced, like well-reasoned. It was all political. Everything was political. Analysis of like everything that was going on. But he was just like some dude in Kentucky in his garage, and it was incredible. So props, because that's not easy to do.
Oh, well, thanks. I thought that's what everybody did.
No, we sit here and like talk. Shit, I messed it up. Go back, redo it, do it again. Oh, now I can't remember what I was going to say. Oh, crap. What was the last clip? Where did I end? No, crap. Okay, go back, do it again.
Man,
for half an
I'm
hour.
not going to lie. I follow the Emily School of Content Making. I can't tell you how many times it's been like, oh, did you rehearse this? And I'm like, no, never. I'm with you, Emily. I'm going to just sit down and say what's on my mind.
It's just because you guys are smart.
They call me Sarah Palin. I shoot from the hip.
I just called you smart. But so you've had 2 of these so far, and
3. I made 3. I made one on Trump coin.
You did. What was the second
Yeah,
one?
I put that one out last night. I made one on the Genius Act. I made one on why XRP is still a coin, and then I made one on Trump coin.
That's right. Yeah, I've been not to linger, but I texted Aishwarya Gupta, who is the head of like payments and stablecoins and all things payment related at Polygon, which just became a much more pivotal role in that ecosystem than it was before. Not that it wasn't important. Like he's like all of a sudden everybody wants to talk to him. Just to say like, dude, you gotta calm down because it's getting harder and harder for all of those new world order money system cryptos to pretend that this is what they do. And he was like, sorry.
That's a good one.
Well,
no, go harder.
So Lindsay,
E for daddy.
All right. The conversation that we had about it specifically was integration of the token into the ecosystem versus one that is like tangential to it and can help fund it. And it's not even necessarily to say that like one is better than the other, although I'm sure we all share a relatively similar opinion here. It's more to say like you, especially as an investor, you got to be aware of like what's going on here. Like if utility is our favorite buzzword and that's the way that an investment vehicle is sold to you, but in reality, it's doing something very different, you should probably want to know about that. And so that was like the biggest disconnect for the two, you know, like what does this thing actually do for an ecosystem versus like what does it purport to do? So it was a great video.
I think that's kind of like a universal truth happening, at least in America right now, where you're just being propagandized and like forgetting how to think, from A to Z. And like you can be told, let's see. You ever bought something off like Temu and it needs instructions, and then you're like following the instructions and you're like, nobody read these instructions.
Yes, I in fact did that with
you can relate. Okay, good.
Well, a red light therapy mask, which I did not buy off Temu and was very expensive. And the instructions were like 3 steps. And I was like, I don't feel like this is
You did not
accurate.
complete the steps. This needs 8 steps.
Yeah, right. Like I need more information. There was no pictures. It was just like, put it on your face. See you later. Your skin will look great. I was like, well, I look like
right. Nothing about like
better work.
time limits, battery management, skin prep. With sunscreen, without sunscreen. Like I would be
my mother-in-law has
anxious.
one,
this is my face card.
I tried it the other day, and I immediately sent a picture to Will because he's the resident skincare consultant for Rise Up, and he immediately called me and he's like, "Who gave you that? What do you do? How long did you put that on your face for? What did you do before you put it on? You're not going to do it again tomorrow, or you have to wait at least is this the first time?" And him and Violet, his girlfriend, were both sitting there on the phone. Like, Christina's like, "Who is that calling you just arbitrarily in the middle of the evening?" And I was like, "Oh, it's just my skincare consultant staff. They're just concerned about whether or not I have any idea what I'm doing with this thing."
That's very funny.
It was blue light. Which
I'm our resident Chinese peptides expert now. So after
we have got to offline about that because I have been looking at GLP-2s like actually, as a funny sidebar, I asked one of my friends like, "Oh, have you thought about taking Ozempic or peptides?" And he looked at me like with like a broken face, and I was like, "Oh my god, no! Like not because you're overweight. Peptides are like really big in the discourse right now."
No, listen, I made them, or I ordered them for my dog, my 12-year-old German Shepherd with degenerative disc disease, and I got her, I guess, what's colloquially called the Wolverine protocol. So it's like BPC 157, TB 500, or something like that. And then, but I bought Chinese peptides. I didn't, get them from like pharmaceuticals, so you have to like reconstitute them yourselves, and I like messed up the math or like lost count when I was doing it because the vial this time was like way more full than it was last time, and I like accidentally gave her like $600 in Wolverine protocol over the course of 5 days, and it was supposed to last like 20 days. but she's doing so good. She has like degenerative disc disease, right? So she like is kind of like hunched and like can't walk super good, and like she stands on like her knuckles all the time. She doesn't stand on her knuckles anymore. She is regaining sensation. It's incredible. It only cost me $600 to learn that. But like I guess there's like a cap. Anyways, we should talk about this not during our special time. Is there a special time together? Focus.
You know what's funny about this is that so this morning on the morning show we hosted Dr. Nick Almond, who is the head of governance at Jito, and somehow
is he a real doctor? It's one of the people that calls themselves doctor, like a chiropractor.
No, he has a PhD in physics, and he was
That's incredible. I love that. I just had to verify because I'm not familiar.
Yeah, that was the story. I was like, and we didn't even get a chance to get to it. I was like, so we got to have you back because I didn't even get a chance to get the story about how does an astrophysicist with a PhD end up doing governance for a DeFi protocol on Solana.
Yeah, seriously.
In this 2026, the year of our Lord. Like that
That's
has got to be a story. But
what's
really funny is that in the course of that conversation about like governance and voting and all this kind of stuff and DAOs and why they don't work and why they haven't worked and what should we do and the idealist scenario and like all this stuff, it was awesome. We ended up on peptides too.
2026 is the year of the peptides. Is what it is.
Apparently,
we're just people that like innovation. Okay, what's the real year this year? What's the real Chinese zodiac this year?
Horse, which I'm super excited about. We're going to be powerful, speedy, grounded. It's going to be a great year.
Is that how I got buried into like horse talk?
I don't know. I feel like how you got to horse talk could be a myriad of things.
Like the last video I saw on horse talk was this guy acting like a Vietnamese nail tech, and he like set up a sign and he's like talking to the dog with a Vietnamese accent or talking to the horse in a Vietnamese accent about like its hooves. It's very funny.
I really like a good like farrier video where we're
Oh my god. I just want to watch a horse get like real intimate with some sexy farrier's ear. Anyways,
just a hoof manicure.
Funny.
Okay, now that we've primed everyone with plenty of things
they pop an abscess. Let's go.
Funny. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Did we talk about Davos?
Yeah, the topic at hand.
Oh yeah, Davos. That's current events.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the World Economic Forum is in Davos right now, happening as we speak. There's been some stuff. It's been, honestly kind of what I would have expected. So I took the liberty of designing a little side-by-side for all of us to go through today. So I have a handful of different categories. And so the theme that I've always
I love an activity.
Oh, it's going to be a good one, and we probably won't get to all of them, but we can pick and choose. The vibe that I've been getting so far is kind of the conversation about integration versus absorption. Integration or absorption versus innovation. So what is all of this stuff? All of this crypto shit? We're all talking about it, but not through the lens of like, as we've purported to as a government. Allow innovation to thrive and kind of like trying to remove some of these regulatory shackles that prevented stuff from being experimented with and all that good stuff. And instead reframing it to like, how can we use this to just make more efficient traditional finance and speed up the vehicle of money extraction? And so my side-by-side is a bunch of different concepts. I think I have like 15 here that how would it fit into, it's on the wrong computer. How would it fit into the integration model versus the parallel systems where like, decentralized finance is doing its thing and then traditional finance still exists and the two are, competing or, not becoming one. So let me see while I get this on the other computer so I can screen share.
I can tell you what the problem with TradFi is, but
Oh, just the one?
That's so real.
It'll take up a while. I have a short anecdote though while you're pulling it up if you want to.
Yes, please.
Okay. So a couple of years ago, and I'm like still waiting for my refund on this now that it's finally resolved. But a couple of years ago, I got audited on my taxes, and it was about like RSUs from a company and like what my cost basis was, whatever. Okay. So here's the thing. The bank that I belonged to at the time that money was spent, and like I, paid the cost base, whatever, for the tax, whatever. That bank got bought by a different bank, and I needed to like get a bunch of bank records, but they only bought 2 years of bank records. So I couldn't get records from the year that I needed in order to do it. And they were like, oh, it's like in a warehouse somewhere in Pennsylvania. You can go there and show up with like an old statement. I'm like, I don't have a statement. I'm a millennial. I keep everything digital. Why would I keep paper when I could keep it digital? And they like just erased everything. So like I got as far as I could download it from them, but like just in like saved it on a literal hard drive, which also could be like corrupted and not work anymore. But like, I just couldn't believe that they only had to keep 2 years of my literal bank records when the IRS can ask for stuff that's like super duper old and like expect you to have it. And like, how is there such a strong incongruency by a heavily regulated institution? Like it blew my mind. Anyways, moral of the story, keep your paper stuff or like actually actively download your statements when you like auto pay your bills. Oh my God.
Perfect timing.
There you go. Good.
So
I can only read it on the real screen, not on our TikTok.
Yeah, for TikTok, this would come across on the little screen as completely illegible. So
that's fine.
I'll read it. So a couple different categories that I've noted or flagged as being integral to the conversation about what to do with all of this stuff. Starting off with just kind of the primary goal to frame the whole thing. So the integration model of like crypto and blockchain and everything is the making traditional finance more efficient. It's the adoption of like private permissionless systems by banks to make moving money cheaper, faster, etc., but still controlling everything in-house and still being able to set all of their normal parameters and restrictions and all that sort of stuff. The things that we all run into about
it's RippleNet.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, for real though, that's exactly what that is.
I know. It's RippleNet.
I just wanted to make sure it was clear. You're not just being facetious. That's actually like
no, I'm being zero facetious. It's literally something presenting itself as a crypto that is literally just a banking tool. Like it's nutty.
The voice.
Sorry. Anyways.
Facetious.
No. I was just. It was more. I guess like my sarcasm is very easily confused with my extreme delight of evidence just presenting itself. For whatever reason.
I mean, like
sorry.
I said, you are spot on.
Sorry, I totally interrupted you. I'm so sorry. I should have caffeinated.
As opposed to the parallel systems model, which is just what I'm calling, like allowing this thing to exist outside of it. The thing that everyone has heard me say 28 billion is traditional finance is designed to keep you confined to where you are because that is what serves it the best. Upward mobility threatens the very nature of that model. And so in order to opt out, you would not want to opt right back into the exact same system with a different tool. You would, in theory, want to be removed from it and participating in money somewhere else. So replacing traditional finance for those who choose to opt out of it and into something more decentralized. Something that is coming up a lot. So I started with money issuance because as we talk about Genius primarily as being really the only substantive fundamental framework establishing piece of legislation that has passed, even if it's not being enforced yet, compared to what would be more DeFi friendly. So as we're talking about stablecoin issuers specifically, who can be a stablecoin issuer and what are they really doing? So Emily, you've talked at great length about the problems with transferring the money made from seigniorage over to stablecoin issuers, how non-bank financial institutions are now more, I guess, able to aggressively and exponentially grow and scale using this, where they normally would not have been able to. We're talking about the ability for things like an Amazon or a Starbucks to become kind of I don't know, would you use the term neobank to describe that concept, or is that not really accurate?
I don't think neobank is appropriate because neobank is specifically being under the jurisdiction of a different bank in order to operate a product on your own. This is, it's just financial anarchy. It's just madness.
Yeah. I think of them more as closed individual economies. So they're not part of a Venn diagram or a bubble of any larger economy. They are their own individual economy.
It's a company town.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Because that's a term that I'm seeing pop up a little bit more. Maybe we can linger on it for a second just because it's absolutely being used. I wouldn't say as the shield next narrative, the same way that we saw, just to name a few, right? Metaverse, back in 2021, the whole NFT thing, when you have a concept that is then used as a label to apply to every project that launches under the sun to try to incentivize it to trend. I've just seen neobank more and more and more and more, particularly around wallets, actually, as wallets kind of continue to do more inside the app. One of the concepts that's come up a couple times recently about next things that could trend is this concept of an everything app. And I personally don't like it. We've talked on the morning show before about how I think that's a waste. I don't think anyone's really looking for that.
That's what I need Walmart for crypto.
Right. So in that sense, that's kind of how I've been thinking of neobank is okay, this was a wallet, but now it's also a browser. And now all my DeFi protocols, quote unquote, are integrated into it. And also here's the exchange and Backpack, right? I have to KYC just to use it because it contains an exchange.
So
I do just want to point out that is a very Western view as well. So everything apps are really, really heavily concentrated in the East and in very, very interesting ways. And it's not just necessarily banking, but also play to earn, social, all of that. Naver, which is the main navigation tool in South Korea, also has kind of a blog and a social feed component. Also just acquired the largest crypto exchange in Korea called Upbit. And so recently as in last September. But yeah, so I do want to point out that like I don't think that we are the primary target audience for this, but these types of apps have been extremely successful in the East and are continuing to grow. So that's just something to note. And I will say also that a lot of them, while they are everything apps, they also serve as an extremely large platform to hold all kinds of other dApps and things. So there is still the overtop component of those everything apps that does allow for like kind of a little bit of a different system than a pure monopoly, though I'm still not a fan of them. I do just want to point out that there's a huge market for them and a huge development process involved in them that is like largely outside of the West.
So I will say that I think the closest thing that we have that we use on a regular basis is Telegram. People just don't develop on it as fast. And I will also say, I guess like another precursor to our book club episode, which is coming up in February, is that I think the attraction of the everything app has a lot more roots in places with later developing economies, because it's providing for something that the regulatory and like I guess like management system managed by the government was not able to provide. And so people are coming up with an alternate path away from the government. And, which is better or worse, I don't know if is even relevant in this case. It's just a matter of like, they're working with what they've got.
Yeah. I tend to call that pop-up financial architecture, by the way.
Oh,
so
okay.
It's like,
that's cute. I like that.
Financial architecture that pops up overnight.
It's adorable.
There is absolutely good ways of doing this and bad ways of doing this, to your point. There's some like Indonesia in particular has one that's like very oriented towards play to earn. So a lot of like, if you're a developer, you can do like GitHub repo cloning and that kind of thing to like earn a little bit of extra cash, which is a great opportunity for like someone who's there, or like gamified approaches to stuff.
It's like a task board too.
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, like there's also plenty of extraction happening in those, and like having the right pop-up financial architecture is key to making that a cool and good concept, but crypto can do it.
I mean, I think too, it's, human nature comes into play, right? I think back to like Axie Infinity as a concept, however many years ago. And, immediately there was this like attempt to sell it as a concept because of what it could do for class mobility, specifically for people who now had access to the internet and could use this thing to basically just get a much higher paying job than they had access to, IRL, and what they could do with that. And then of course human nature stepped in, and all of a sudden you started to see call centers being set up wherein people were sat down and handed 2 phones and just sit there and play it and farm, and someone else gets to keep all of the profits again. So I mean, that the combat of those two things I think is always going to be there, but I think it's inevitable. It's worth working on. Lindsay, I was wondering if you could give a little bit more context with regards to your work specifically in this, just because as I often introduce you, you are one of the only people I know that is actively like going out into the world and onboarding people into various things. I know you've had some travel in recent history where you've done exactly that. So obviously you see a lot more of this than I think we would if we're just sitting at home.
Which is how the term pop-up financial architecture came about in my mind, actually. Yes, so I think I've talked about this before, but I spent some time down in Guatemala this summer working with a nonprofit, and essentially it's a U.S.-based nonprofit, but they make all these payments to local Guatemalan folks. Now, Guatemala has 2 banks in the country, both of them kind of federally, nationally controlled. I'm honestly not 100% sure what the banking relationship is there, but the point is that both of them are like extremely large and they suck. Like they kick people out, they debank people, they don't have great rates for anything. They're very hard to access, all of that. And in addition, like it's a very cash-based economy. So you're relying on ATMs all the time, everywhere. And so what I did was took MoneyGram's partnership with Stellar, which is like the only cash to DeFi kind of option out there at the moment, though with Western Union and Solana, that may be changing.
And CoinMe and Polygon as well.
Yes.
That's a lot.
Yeah, I actually did some previous work with CoinMe too. But yeah, I'm happier to see places try to like work with cash more. And essentially with this partnership through MoneyGram, you can walk into any MoneyGram with a Stellar wallet and cash out USDC in local currency. So what I did was help this nonprofit set up a payroll system where they are able to pay the various people that worked for them. And then those people could go cash out at MoneyGrams, which was super cool. The best part about it though was I remember one guy in particular, he's the bus driver. It was a kid's sports camp. So he was the bus driver for the camp, and he had been debanked something like 5 years ago. And so he was getting his payment and received it. And then he opened the wallet and he's holding it. And he said, wait, I don't have to cash all this out. And the person who was running the camp said, no, you can keep it in there. And he said, oh my gosh, that's great. I haven't had a bank account in 5 years. This is perfect. And I was like, and that's it. Like that's it. The kind of solution. And for him, like especially in more rural areas where there doesn't tend to be banks or ATMs, there's always MoneyGrams. And so it's a much better system for getting people access to cash in and out.
Yeah, I think so one of the books on our book club goes into this stuff in enormous depth. So I guess we can save a lot of that.
The female economist who worked at a check cashing place and a couple other ones.
Yeah,
I love that book. Fantastic.
I'm pretty sure that was like early when we were having like book club nerd talk in our chat. I was like, buy these books right now. I will talk about them.
We did, yeah. And I just
and then we like.
I'm working on the meme one at the moment, but that one's
so good. It's so good. But yeah, I think what a lot of it has to do with is again largely just how capital evolved in all of these places, and if they lack the infrastructure, especially these days, internet, it's just not something that can happen. And like it even used to be, like if you think about the evolution of the credit card in the US, it started with your credit card and it being physically I don't even know what you would call that, like impressed onto one of those like duplicate sheets. Yeah. But yeah, you're running through like this thing. And then at the end of the day, if you're a merchant, you have to go through and you have to like call the credit card company. You got to like type all this stuff in. And then it evolved into, using the telephone line, right? So you had your credit card machine. It would kind of gather information all day. And at the end of the day, you had to do your settlement where you like push your credit card stuff through and it like helped you keep your books and you would like run your report that way, right? To now where it like literally like the amount of things they're using like Clover and Square and I don't even know, by Stripe or whatever. It's just strictly internet, and like all of that infrastructure that's physically installed all through America is going to go into disrepair and not be usable. And like, I don't know if anyone's gotten a landline lately, but like if you get a landline phone, there is no phone company. You're getting it from the internet. You're not using the phone wires that are going everywhere. And like, it's crazy because, we used to have backups and we're not using the backups anymore. We're like forced to evolve into this new kind of technology, but like in places that infrastructure does not exist. The technology that we have and we can use is just entirely unavailable. And it creates this like alternate map of borders and countries. And it's based on access to technology, and the governance of it is completely unrelated to where these things are actually accessible. And it's just crazy to me that no one is really considering this when legislation is made.
Absolutely. I will say too, there's kind of two things I want to point out. The first is the phenomenon you're talking about is leapfrogging, which is super cool. And that's the idea that developing countries can actually leapfrog technological developments extremely quickly and basically get to kind of the best point a lot faster than kind of going through the iteration process that maybe more developing.
Right. Well, they don't have to innovate. They can just adopt.
Correct. So, and that actually happened in the Soviet Union with industrialization. They skipped all the hard work of the 20s and 30s while they were in political turmoil, and then basically jumped way forward in agricultural practices, which is super fascinating in industrialization. But so that leapfrogging is like a term that I feel like everyone should know and learn about because it's awesome. And then the second thing, oh my gosh, I think I lost it. Damn, it's gone. Just the one thing. Just remember leapfrogging.
I think it's worth pointing out. I think that a lot of I mentioned Polygon and CoinMe specifically as another, like massive leapfrog, honestly, in the adoption of like physical locations to do all this. I think a lot of that is thanks to MoneyGram. I'd have to look on exactly the number, but there's like 50,000 in-person locations, and I don't know exactly how many off the top of my head.
Yeah, MoneyGram and Western Union.
But yeah, MoneyGram, huge player. You know what's really funny is that's one of those like chance meetings that I had at ETH Denver last year. Was like just like lingering by one of the stages and then getting like 20 minutes to shoot the shit with the MoneyGram CEO.
That's awesome.
And that was
That's really cool.
I was going to say, I remember the second thing, and that's that I was taught a while ago from studying international development. You always have to assume that people are doing the thing that makes the most sense for the situation that they're in.
Yes.
So we will learn that with the check cashing and payday loan systems too, of why those are so popular in Western economies. But when going into a developing economy and saying,
I love that you liked my book.
Oh, so good, so good. But why are they doing this or why are they doing that is not the right place to start. And so again, like MoneyGram and Western Union can be seen as sort of villainized, particularly in the West, because we don't have to use expensive wire transfer things. But if you are not in the West, that actually might be a lifeline for you. And I've really come to appreciate the kind of complexity of operating large financial systems, particularly ones that are based on cash. There is a lot of logistics and operational flows that go into an organization like MoneyGram. So to assume that they have a villainous properties because their fees are so high or this or that, like there's actually a lot of back end stuff that has to work and policies that have to be followed and countries that need to be taken into consideration. And there's just a simple flow of cash when you're doing an exchange or a withdrawal or a sending or whatever is so different. So
it's different. It's also a really important service. And I think people just forget how expensive it is to operate a physical business that has people doing in-person transactions. And like it is very expensive. Like that is a very expensive process to run. And as a side note, like Amex, American Express, as like a credit card company, like they used to offer, I bet they probably still do, just not really in America because they're not popular anymore, but they used to offer like a tremendous amount of financial services. And I found out just recently that Amex is the only credit card company that will let you post your own bail, which I think is a very powerful piece of information. And suddenly I care about a credit card company more than just credit card points because I have understood a differentiator that is important.
I think, Lindsay, you touch on something that is good to linger on for a second, just because, you know, as you might, if you start trying to understand, you know, the specific conversation that frames a lot of the legislation, the policy that we're seeing in crypto right now, you know, a lot of it is framed around like a subtle kneecapping of DeFi. It's really because of exactly that. Like if this is at least my interpretation of it. It is an incredibly complex system with a tremendous amount of things, you know, involved. The idea of like transferring a legitimate recognized currency from one jurisdiction to another across multiple border, whatever. And a blockchain just kind of shits on the entire thing and says like, what if it didn't? And that in of itself is like the encapsulation of the threat, like as a bumper sticker. You're like, hey, what if none of this shit mattered and I could just send you anything I wanted without anybody's permission at any time?
I think like the definitive threat is like country sovereignty, right? Mm-hmm. Because their currency is the entire reason that they're able to manage their borders. And I don't think people are really putting two and two together in this case. And like, I say that largely from like some of the comments I was getting when I like made my Genius Act video and talking about how like it could very likely lead to the collapse of the dollar. And people are like, oh no more people, you know, making predatory debts and, you know, loan systems and like, you know, taking everything that I need. And it's like, dude, all you're really doing is like demonstrating a complete lack of understanding for how these things actually work and all the different pieces that need to be there for it to, you know, be put together. You're not like actually making a real point. And like losing the value of your currency threatens your life directly. Like this is a country that you're protected in, and if your country pisses off enough people, then like other countries are going to come try to do what they can do, and if they think that they can win, they're going to do it. And like there are civilian casualties in war, and like it's a huge turning point, especially like what the threat of crypto provides, and with like what types of laws we're working on bringing into place and like legislation. And that is, I feel people are not using the full breadth of their knowledge to truly understand what's going on, or even trying to understand like what these operations look like. And like, I think you have a much better chance at understanding it, you know, if you've owned a business or worked at a higher level in small business, right? For somebody else, you see how these things transact, or, you know, have friends in other countries or visit other countries and see that the infrastructure just isn't there. And this is how it happens. I remember when I was doing study abroad at London School of Economics, like the entire concept of topping up your phone and like you were constantly prepaying for your minutes was just like so baffling to me. And I like couldn't figure out why you can do it at literally every store everywhere, right? Like you can do it at the drugstore, you can do it at the grocery store, you can do it at the train station, you can do it at like the, you know, stationery shop, you can do it at the tourist gift shop, like you can do it literally everywhere. And I was like, why can't I just pay a bill? But like the idea of, you know, giving someone permission to take money out of your wallet whenever they please is very unsettling to people in a lot of different countries for a lot of different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think, I mean, like you said, it at the end of the day, it really just kind of demonstrates a lack of understanding for like the full breadth of the system. Because, yeah, I mean, we could sit here and we could name things for the rest of the show that are wrong, inherently wrong with like the current dollar system, the current central. I say all the time, you know, people are sitting here mongering fear about an eventual CBDC and how we need to take steps to prevent that.
We already have a CBDC, whatever.
Forgetting that we've had one for over 50 years, ever since the dollar was digitized. It can be, look at the whole Canadian trucker thing, right? Like that was it on full display.
Hilarious.
That like,
that's so funny.
Spoiler alert, it already is here because, you know, the central controlling authority can choose how long you can keep it for. They can force you to spend it. They can take it away from you. They can control how much of it you have to give to them arbitrarily, decided in-house. Like it is a fully permissioned digital money system, 100% controlled by a central authority. Just because things have not been put into place doesn't mean they cannot.
And like, P.S., let me just tell you how government funding for literally anything works. It's the same. Like,
take it by force.
I think like, so I will say I want to point out too that I'm guilty of the same kind of understanding this much of the picture at times. Like it is important to like zoom out and look farther. And I've been learning this because I've been working on a paper with an economist from the Caribbean on corresponding banking relationships and how small businesses there rely on those for international transaction settlements. And so what's essentially happening is like in crypto, like it's just like you said, Alex, we're like, oh, now you can send money anywhere, anytime, which is true. But there's so many, the reason why that wasn't like an overnight adoption thing is because there's so many other ways in which the financial system is mired into our lives that are really important to look at, particularly when you're something like a small business owner or in a developing country. And so for these folks that are building businesses on that side, I'm working specifically with a Caribbean economist. I'm thinking of businesses there, but they have to, in order to be a legitimized business that can sell in the Caribbean, they need a bank. They need a banking relationship. They need to be able to show their money flow, pay their taxes, do all of that. That's how you become a legitimate business. So in order to work with that bank, if you want to go outside of that country, you need to be in good standing with that bank because that bank is going to have the international corresponding banking relationships with presumably a much larger Western bank that's going to handle and settle those international transactions with your bank so that you can get your money at the end of the day. Now, obviously there's all kinds of fees in the way, and we can say like, oh, that's great that like someone can just walk in and tap and pay with a stablecoin wallet. Okay, but that means that their bank has to be able to reconcile where that money came from internationally and where it's going to go to and how much tax to pay on it locally and what that all looks like. And if they're accepting a whole bunch of crypto payments, their local bank is at risk of losing its relationship with its corresponding bank because that's risky behavior, which means that it can't take that stablecoin money in and deposit it into a merchant account because it can't afford to lose the relationship with a corresponding bank for all the other businesses.
Yeah, it's not worth it to them.
Yeah. And so like it's great. Like I definitely got into this industry with kind of thinking like this solves all the problems, right? But it doesn't. Like it has to be able to work alongside if we wanted to actually solve problems and disrupt the traditional system, it has to be able to work alongside to actually help the people at the bottom. And working alongside means figuring out how to work into those traditional banking relationships, which sucks. Like I get it.
It's very difficult.
I'm glad to see people starting to care and move in that direction of like, oh, hey, like it's actually been around for over 10 years and we haven't really picked it up in the way we thought we would. Why is that? Like,
here's my hot take, and it leads into one of our Davos topics.
Oh.
I think the technology, the emergent technology created through blockchain has more value to add to software products and the applications that run our lives than we'll be able to overcome financially. And I'll take user identity for 300, Alex. Yeah. So
the only thing that popped in my head as you said that, Lindsay, your final point that I have not considered, which is why I'm distracted as I write it down so I don't lose it. It doesn't solve the problem. There's a difference between solving a problem and creating a thing that highlights and puts on full display exactly what the problem is. Because until all of this stuff swung into the scene, I know I personally never thought about it. Like the specific nature of how confining and how segregated finances are in all of their intricacies.
Yeah, I think there's just like a huge bias based on what you know and are comfortable with that makes a lot of these other systems feel very uncomfortable to you, and just to kind of like not trust them inherently, or to believe that yours is the best for XYZ reasons. And it's really hard to step through that if you're not a literal expert on global economics in all the different countries and how these things interact. And I think going back to like the leapfrogging technology thing, this has evolved over time to incorporate all of these countries at very different levels of technology adoption and innovation, and making the assumption that we can just shoehorn in crypto because our bags is just wildly inaccurate.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Okay, we have 5 minutes left. What do you want to cover on Davos?
Oh my God.
To be honest,
I'll be here. I'm not gonna.
To be honest, I think that a lot of this kind of does cover it's not over yet.
Yeah.
My biggest takeaway thus far has really been that, like, we're yet again, we can end with this. I'll get your thoughts on this before you have to leave, Lindsay.
Okay.
It's I know I've been whining about this for ages. It's the nature of a campaign promise like vague platitude to make, in this case, the United States of America the quote crypto capital of the world. There's no definition there. It doesn't really mean anything, which means that you are then able to take that and make it mean whatever is most convenient for you for it to mean at the time. That is yet again the theme that I'm seeing here, where still this far in, we're not really talking in depth about any specific solutions. We're talking about this vague concept of, like, the center of the universe kind of a thing. And so I was hoping that we would see a little bit more, and obviously, the World Economic Forum covers more than just crypto. It just happens to be a hot button issue that does come up. I'm curious, I guess, for your thoughts just on that conceptually, this idea that, like, first of all, what does it even mean to be the center of anything that is decentralized? It really flies in the face of the nature of everything that we're talking about here. And it demonstrates,
so
again, like you were saying earlier, Emily, it demonstrates a fundamental lack of understanding about what it is we're doing here in the first place. And so because of that is why I'm harping so much on this idea of, like, integrating specific pieces of the tech into a closed, permissioned, centralized system versus allowing it to be what it was perhaps intended to be. So Lindsay, I know that you have just a couple minutes left, but
Well, I was gonna. So I think I'm glad that you used Davos as a lead into this. I told Alex before we started, but I highly recommend folks watch Ordinary Things. He's an amazing researcher from Great Britain and does like a whole hour-long deep dive into Davos. That is incredible and extremely good research. So would recommend watching that. I mean, to me, like the whole center of crypto thing, there's two things that arise from that. The first is that Davos embodies this too. There's a fundamental lack of understanding for what's happening at any other level of society for the people that are in charge of society. Like, it's just there. So, like, that shows that lack of understanding. It demonstrates it perfectly. It like embodies that, right? Like, Davos is a bunch of like people yucking it up at the highest levels and giving each other pats on the backs for doing so. And I think maybe occasionally coming out with something innovative that may move the needle for the rest of the world, but most of the time, not really. So like,
I was always under the impression it's mostly about like making frenzies.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like, relationships are certainly formed, but like relationships that benefit Hoopst, and it's all the people that go every year and no one else. So like, you know, like that's, there's worse things, but like there's significantly better things too. So that's like kind of the first thing that comes up for me. The second thing that comes up is like becoming the center of crypto to me is just like a really bad way of saying like creating an actually good policy and business environment for people to operate in and be innovative in. And it's like, you could just say like, not instead of being the center, like the actual like smart thing to say would be like, we want to create an awesome environment for people to grow and innovate in building blockchain technologies. Like that is the ethos of that. Like, you don't need to be, that's not centralization. That's taking into account the fact that we have systems that are old and systems that are new, and we need to find a way to make them work together. And we could lead on that feasibly, but it's going to take more than just like throwing money at a whole bunch of shit, hoping it sticks, and having really shitty policies along the way. So like,
dude, you got to be best. That's it. You got to be best.
Yeah. So
be bester.
Yeah.
No, be best. Be best.
Yeah. Everything is computer after all.
I remember.
Yeah. Okay.
I remember.
Yeah. So that's all for me. I'm signing off, folks. Until next week.
Sounds good.
Okay, we'll recap you, or we'll make you watch the recording.
Yeah. Post it on TikTok.
You can find it on our website.
Yeah, highlight reel. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, sick. That's right.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
Okay. So, I mean, Emily, I'll give you that same one first before we move on to anything else. Is, you know, you were talking a little bit backstage about, you know, just this idea of another vague platitude versus anything remotely declarative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So like, as far as vague platitudes go, I think vague platitudes run the same risk as inflammatory headlines that don't mean what they say, or even like research, like scientific research and studies that the headline can be misinterpreted if you don't have the context of the overview of what's in them, right? And I can't pinpoint in my head which social media site gives you a warning before you reshare or comment on an article that you haven't read, but one of them does that, and I appreciate that. Okay, so basically, I think like
Twitter used to.
The issue that was a nice feature, but Elon probably personally hated it.
Yeah, pre-Musk, if you retweeted something that you had not interacted with, it would caution you against reposting.
Maybe that's what I'm remembering it from.
That's the only one that I've ever seen on any platform, but it's obviously gone.
It's got to be that. Okay, so anyways, like I think it runs the same risk, right? Because it can easily be misinterpreted and it can be discussed ad nauseum for like a really long time, to the point that the narrative that people are talking about is something entirely made up and not based in fact. And we see this happen all the time. And I can probably rattle off a dozen cases that this has occurred in the recent zeitgeist. And like, it's just nuts how much people are unwilling to engage with the sources when they're having a conversation. And I fear this runs an identical risk, because my first inclination when I heard making America the center of crypto had nothing to do with legislation. And I think that's basically an informed decision that has nothing to do with legislation, because of just how silly the legislation is for this, and just how unwelcoming America is to starting business and small business. I don't know how you could possibly consider yourself a country that's good to start a business in without, single payer healthcare and the risk of, losing everything you've ever accumulated in, the small gap of time that you try to start a business before you get a different job or before your business makes enough money for you to buy healthcare, right? Like that is a huge risk in a place where healthcare is so egregiously expensive that like people seriously do not innovate in this country under their own name because they don't want that level of risk, right? And I think it's also fundamentally why so many founders in America are so young. One, they can still be on their parents' healthcare unless they erase that part of Obamacare too. But two, because they are more healthy overall, they don't have families to care for, whatever. Okay, so back on topic. America being the center of this, those are the reasons that it made me laugh. And another thing that I was, considering from this perspective, even if they did have the intentions that Lindsay outlined, is that the thing about crypto is that it's especially on like in L1 that actually has this ethos in mind. So when I say crypto, I mean like decentralized blockchain, not XRP. And that is it, because of the nature of decentralization, the validation of a transaction, including the data and the software, defined by the smart contract that's going through and the interaction that happens there, is that can happen at a server in my house, that can happen in a server in your house, that can happen in a server in any country in the world that has internet connection, right? It's not limited to a particular country, and it's only monitored by ISPs. And a government can regulate an ISP, but they can't stop you from innovating in a different place or beating someone to it, or, sleuthing and resurfacing something and like calling it your own. There just are no real borders in it. And the only borders that we have are by reassigning the innovations created in blockchain to archaic laws that don't really fit the nature of the business. And I think it kind of echoes the sentiment that we were discussing about how different countries have different ways to handle, financial things, insurance things, all of it, and how you can't just shoehorn crypto into it as a universal solution without understanding, what it takes to be a legal entity, or what it takes to actually, operate without getting thrown in prison, or, just being able to spend money, pay your rent, pay your mortgage, whatever it is. Like all of these things are largely unconsidered. So the thought of, American crypto is the best crypto, or whatever the headline is just like absolutely bonkers to me, because you can't control it to that degree. The only thing that you could possibly do is create some sort of a deal with the ISPs in America and say you can't allow any transactions from XYZ blockchain. But like, if they were going to be doing that, why wouldn't they have stopped the dark web at a technical level? They can only stop it, individual pieces of it, as they see fit, through through like the courts, right? Like through actual punishment for it. So it's just, to me, it's just absolute nonsense. And the other thing I was going to mention is that like with my patent that I have, like I have patents in blockchain, multiple patents. And when my patent attorney...
Can we frame the patent conversation specifically just as like... a demonstration of this idea of still kind of being throttled?
1,000%.
The thing that I just want to give context to before you talk about the patents is that if you say, as a campaign kind of platform, vague platitude that we're going to make America the crypto capital of the world, or any country, leaving, like we just said, it's kind of nonsense, but that's sort of the way that campaign promises work. There's no time to talk about nuance.
They don't care.
And obviously, pro tip, the nature of framing a campaign is that you don't want anyone to come back to you with the fact that you did not deliver on a campaign promise. So as long as you make it vague enough, you can manipulate the conversation after the fact to
1,000%.
kind of Nostradamus yourself into a position wherein you delivered on it, even if you did nothing. And this is exactly that, because the Genius Act was the first piece of past legislation that went through both houses of Congress and was signed into law. Now, not enforced until January of 2027. That's a topic for another time. But just like you're saying here, really the only thing that we've done is issue letters of non-action against things that are technically still in a gray area at best. And so that is something to be aware of, because as I keep screaming into the void, we have hyper-politicized crypto, so much so that without anyone understanding any of it, the next time the balance of power tilts in the other direction, by that I mean Democrats, their incentive is going to be to undermine whatever was done. Not because something was wrong, but only because it became a Republican talking point, and that is very dangerous. Because like we said, nothing has really been codified. And so the patent thing, I'm assuming, kind of is just a good way to contextualize that for like a specific experience.
Yeah, so it's specific. Yeah, it's specific to the U.S. Patent Office and patents on the blockchain and how they are enforced. Okay. And my patent attorney asked me if I wanted to pay the extra fee to create and protect my patent across all of the other countries that like cooperate with the U.S. Patent Office. And it was like an extra $40,000. And I like talked through it with him. And I was like, okay, so like, when you told me the definition of what is able to be protected under U.S. patent in America, you said as long as a transaction occurs on U.S. soil in any part in the chain of command, then that patent is defensible in America. That portion, those customers, whatever it is, it doesn't have to be the user specifically. It's where the software was validated. And I was like, well, it's decentralized. It's validated everywhere, every single time. And everybody else is catching up on it. And he said, well, that means that you don't need to, pay these extra fees in order to protect it globally, because it is by nature protected globally by being on blockchain. Like you have completely mowed down all of the borders that exist through these different countries and sovereign entities by making it on blockchain and then patenting it in the US system. And I think that really demonstrates a deep inherent misunderstanding about how blockchain and crypto works over how the legislature is being designed. And we talked about this, I think, like with the Genius Act and with a bunch of other things before, but like essentially the arbitrage across borders in order to make something legal in America is very valuable, right? Being able to get around the American system and being able to navigate that external system. It's the same reason you're going to hire a tour guide when you go to a foreign country, right? You want to be able to do the thing the right way, not get in trouble, have the best experience you possibly can, right? Like you're trying to maximize. And this is inherent to the system itself, to the point that I think it just feels like it's in just existing on an entirely separate plane. And like the issue ultimately comes down to taxes. And I guess also like the sanctioned list of people, depending on where you are as a country. But like, if you live in America, you spend money in America, that's what is being taxed ultimately, right? And they want to be able to track how much money you're making. And the same way that they track your investments in stock, right, and the returns you've made, equates to the same way that you're kind of like they're trying to force this level of management onto crypto. And that's what's led to all of this legislation, like the Genius Act and then the subsequent Clarity Act and, the ETFs and stuff that we have. But ultimately, like, I think it's just an entire misfit. And the gap to fill it is going to be so tremendous that it's going to completely distract from all of the other legislation that could possibly be made for people that it's relevant to, like the rest of America. And it just feels especially at like the current rate of adoption of crypto, like financial institutions and non-bank financial institutions are already discovering the value of crypto all on their own. And if you're a bank, you obviously have to like be compliant, and like we need some sort of a way to bridge these gaps. But like inherently, they are separate. Like they are just unrelated. And watching this legislature be made and trying to be navigated is just so bizarre to me, because it's like it's literally like letting go of a helium balloon. As soon as it gets onto blockchain and out of like your physical computer, like that's it, man. It's out there. You can't take it back. It's gone, right? And you can come up with different mechanisms to kind of like work within that dogma, right? Like within that set of rules, but you're not going to be able to truly wrap it up.
I was just looking for the specific quote that I was thinking of. There's a really there's a good conversation kind of going back and forth in the comments over here, just about specifically the enshrining of self-custody rights, and there. So the thing that I was looking for was this specific quote that came recently. There was an. I wish that I could find. I'm gonna have to dig for this specific quote because I cannot remember who it came from. It was not anything like codified. This is not like a policy or anything like that, but it's kind of just like it's a glimpse into motive. So self-custody and cold storage specifically, the rights of you as an individual to custody your own assets and then be solely in charge of them, has not itself necessarily been threatened. It also hasn't been really protected. And there was this incredibly alarming comment made that is the thing I'm trying to find recently, coming out of the administration, wherein, yes, you are allowed to self-custody, the rights to cold storage and self-custody of your Bitcoin or your stable coins or whatever. You have that. Nothing is taking it away from you. But it could absolutely be used as a piece of the probable cause determination for the assumption that you are up to no good. The idea that you might be flagged for using cold storage, or the fact that you need to make an on-chain trackable and noticeable transaction to withdraw assets from something online, something hot, offline to something cold, could be flagged and stored as one of the impetus for you being audited. It could come up in the nature of conversation about what is it that you're doing with money? Where did you get this money? Why do you have this money? Why are you trying to hide it offline? Like, what are you trying to get away from? What are you so scared of? That is not the enshrining of a right. That is very specifically trying to make it seem at a surface level that you support something while doing one of the single most dangerous things you could do with that knowledge kind of behind the scenes. It's really
it's Minority Report
that was said.
But okay, so what I think is really interesting about that, and not a litany of other things that I'm about to discuss, is that it don't make sense. So, okay, so the thing about self-custody is literally just the ability to act as your own bank. And like, sorry, you can't keep up with the technology and use the tools that we're all using. I don't know what to say. Like, it's all out there. You can just go get it. It's the equivalent of telling someone to Google it, but it's like the U.S. government cutting the budgets for the institutions that they're using to fund themselves, which is
that's a good
stupid. It's so stupid. Okay, so anyways, the thing about self-custody and maintaining your own money is that they're not going to punish you in the same way for having a lot of cash. They're going to like track it, but like you can still accumulate a lot of cash without telling them anything at all. They don't do it with any sort of peer-to-peer transactions. It doesn't exist. I mean, they got a boon from like Venmo and Zelle and all of that stuff that made these things easier. And I think the argument could be made that by slowly eliminating our currency options and making cash not as usable or easy to balance, throughout the regular existence of a person, you're setting yourself up here for that type of environment. But like, you can stash cash, you can act as your own bank. And what I mean by you can act as your own bank is that if you have enough finances to take a loan from yourself, if you have enough finances to self-insure, if you have enough finances to manage your own 401k, you can do these things. All you have to do is file the paperwork properly, right? You can act as a business to protect yourself personally. You can do all of these things. There's legal precedent for all of these things. There's standard process, there's services that support it, right? All of these things exist. So why would self-custodying your own motherfucking money, because they can't fucking Google it, actually be defensible? And I don't think it is. I don't think that would stand up in court very long at all.
You know, I think that, and I'm not bringing this up to like, you know, send us on a tangent to something unrelated, but I really don't think that matters anymore. I don't think the idea that perhaps if really put to the test, something may not hold up in a court of law, I don't think that matters, because it doesn't stop an unjust accusation or targeting or assault on your individual sovereignty from taking place in the first place. Like,
does not remove the friction. That's true.
Look at the whole, everything with immigration enforcement is the perfect encapsulation of that right now, wherein the fact that the arrest or the detainment would not hold up in court does not prevent your window from being smashed and you being dragged out by your collar and thrown in the back of an unmarked car.
Yeah, you're still going to suffer as a result. Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, it will get thrown out, but it really doesn't matter, because from the jump, the transaction wherein a centralized exchange marks a transfer out of your central account into a known or potentially cold storage device wallet, if that immediately flags you as as a potential target for audit, because that can be looked at as one of the ingredients to constitute a suspicious transaction, even if it's legal, that is a massive problem. And I really don't give a shit what happens in court 3 years from now when you're trying to defend yourself. I give a shit that I got flagged and audited and harassed now in the meantime, because I exercised a legitimate right to custody my own assets.
I totally agree. And all of those branches of the government have been entirely defunded. So the chances of it being you before something like this is actually like gone through the entire process, I think are actually pretty low in this case. Sure. Which, I mean, it's not the greatest, it's not the greatest like rationalization of it. Like, it's not going to make you like sleep better at night, but at the same time, like, we have, in fact, as a country, cut off our nose to spite our face and like think they really dunked, and it is a fat airball.
Yeah, no, so. That I do agree with. I've actually been told by, I have two friends who are former attorneys. One of them was a securities attorney who worked at the SEC a long time ago.
Oh yeah.
And the other one worked for the IRS, and basically the consensus there was like estimated 7 years behind on everything.
Oh, it's so behind. I said this earlier. I've been waiting for a refund from the 2020 tax year since August.
But and
it's a lot of money. It's like a lot.
The current methodology, and again, you can find evidence of this in basically every body of enforcement of some law set from the government right now. The attitude is not like full like optics into everything that's going on and like flagging notable cases that require intervention, whether that be like an immigrant genuinely dangerous or someone doing something actually malicious with your money. The only way that these things are being picked out is determination of the least amount of friction, something that they think they can handle quickly because you can't fight back. And two, rogue agent making their name by picking out of a hat a random thing. So even if the IRS is like 7 years behind, there's still nothing to stop rogue agent who's bored at his desk one day from thinking, I want to get a quick win. Look at this random schmuck who got all of these different transactions out of a centralized exchange account. I bet you I could flag that they're avoiding some kind of a tax somewhere, because you may not even know which taxes you're avoiding because the thing is so broken. Boom, done. I'm going after you. Audit. Oh, you can't produce? Straight to jail. Like, that is still a very real threat.
The moral of the story is fight back with the IRS and have a real, what's it called? CPA. Or better yet, a tax attorney do your stuff. But I know that's like kind of out of the bracket for a lot of people, which sucks, right? It's here's another poor tax for you.
Yeah.
Here you are again. It's very illegal to be poor.
But that's another point that I use to kind of determine whether or not I think that a policymaker, a legislator, or a government official is actually interested in any way, shape, or form about in actually helping all of us. It's that what has been completely removed from the conversation thus far. It's any amount of tax clarity, any amount. Cynthia Lummis had a specific bill introduced not a terribly long time ago that was about tax fairness. And it got, surprise, surprise, no support and died immediately. I don't know if there's any plans to reintroduce, but the only piece of legislation that I'm interested in us codifying and starting with in an effort to do something that would genuinely improve people's lives as it relates to all of this stuff is some kind of clarification around what constitutes taxable, how to differentiate between money that's already been taxed and could be taxed in the future. And then just some sort of education or system that's in place that's standardized about how to keep track of all of it, because it is unbelievably nightmarish right now.
I mean, it's nightmarish even if you're not in crypto is the thing.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by these things are entirely different planes of existence, and they can try their best to unite them, but without actually understanding how the technology works, they're not going to have much luck. And the legislature so far shows us that they have no clue how it works, and they do not understand the mechanics. So anyways, user identity. And I don't know if you could show the one thing that we're talking about with user identity or what, but I forget the names of the categories, but it's basically the concept of KYC, KML, or is that what it is? KML? Yeah. Versus optional opacity is what it comes down to. And I think that optional opacity is actually in the best interest of America, as crazy as this is going to sound. Okay. And the reason that I say that is because for the actual impactful things that go on, I think that those are what you would want to be with the optional opacity on the transparent side of it, right? Where it's I removed a huge amount of money from my account, similar to having, wins over $10,000 at a casino, right? This is the type of thing that's going to get marked. And these standards exist all over the place, right? They exist in Venmo, they exist in Zelle. The reporting requirements, you can literally take money out of the bank to up to X amount of dollars, depending on your bank's individual policies. But I think with the IRS, it's again $10,000. It might be $7,000, whatever. But you can take money out of your bank account and not have to tell them why. I paid close to $500,000 on my backyard in $5,000 increments from the bank on a weekly basis, as they remodeled it, because I was just going to the bank and getting under the amount of money that they had to order and under the limit because my contractor didn't want to pay taxes on it, I guess. And he's dead now, so I have no problem going in and keeping all my receipts and writing it off as an improvement to my house later on, right? So it's it worked out okay for me in this particular case. That was something that I probably would not have agreed to when I knew that was going to be trouble, whenever I sold my house, not being able to write off that expense. But anyways, it's we have all of this precedence for this. So why can't I have privacy in my transactions the same way that I have privacy when I pay for something in trade or in cash? I don't need the entire world to know that I, paid my massage therapist for whatever, right? That's not, I don't think that needs to be publicly available information. And on the other hand, one of the reasons that I think, or one of the undervalued features of blockchain is the tremendous amount of personal data or profile data that you're really putting out there. You're not exclusively saying oh, my name is Emily Herrick, right? And here's my address and my phone number and, my school's mascot and the make and model and color of my first car, or my favorite teacher, or my favorite restaurant. It's not like that, but you can see what types of services I'm choosing to interact with. You can see if I'm interested in DeFi. You can see if I'm mostly just sports betting. You can see if I'm gambling. You can see if I'm on Polymarket. You can see if I like NFTs. You can see what NFTs I like. You compare the NFTs that I like to the profile of other people who also like NFTs. And you can also incentivize them to connect their credit card information to that in order to provide you, rewards that are not worth anything to the person who offers them, or are certainly not worth the amount of data that they're collecting from you. Like the tremendous amount of data that is available on blockchain that nobody is really using yet. They're just kind of like, I wonder like what collections the top holders of these NFTs share, or like whatever that is. It's got nothing to do with, even like a half-life on activity of your wallet, right? Like you can do so much with that particular information to the point that you can like figure out if an individual should be trusted or not, right? Were they associated with a scam? How many times over were they associated with a scam? Are they in there as a buyer? Are they actually in there with like a secondary wallet as a buyer where they're really orchestrating it, pushing this forward, like whatever it is? There's so much data there and nobody is touching it, which is so crazy to me because your credit card data gets sold over and over and over again.
Yeah, it's honestly, this is one of those things that like I have a really hard time thinking about without like arriving at the point of it being futile.
It is futile. It's silly. It's a silly waste of time. And it's stopping us from doing real legislation that actually helps Americans.
Yeah, I think about too, I mean, just in the context of your data, where it is, who ends up with it. I mean, I'm thinking about, in crypto, even if it's not like opening you up to the vector of like government intervention in an effort to like freeze your stuff or, put undue pressure on you or whatever, it could just straight up be sold to people interested in wrench attacks. I mean, that we've seen an uptick in that recently, which is basically just the concept of like having you physically brute forced, like literally attacked with a wrench in real life to hand over sensitive financial data to be stolen from. The concept.
Everybody's complaining about the audio. I don't know if that's. Sorry. Thought I should mention it.
Okay. Static. All of a sudden.
Guys, is it just Alex or is it me too?
Feedback. Okay, hang on.
Let's find out.
Nothing's changed. Let me check this. Is it still happening?
We both sound like a machine.
Could just be connection. Nothing's changed with the audio. Everything reads on the board as being fine. I don't have any.
Did a puppy pull a cord? Not today.
Not today.
I'm gonna switch to my AirPods.
Yeah, I wonder if it's well, we made it pretty far before something terrible happened.
Any better? Stop and rejoin. That won't happen.
Yeah, unfortunately. Let me know if that it's the government.
It's the government, right? They heard us talking. They're like, no.
No improvement. Okay, hold on.
Are we getting it on? YouTube says it sounds fine. Okay, TikTok. Whatever.
Yeah, I think it's a TikTok thing.
Here we are troubleshooting. Doing the do.
Doing the thing.
It's like that time that I accidentally did a no-no on the stream. They gave a literal error. I don't know, man.
Might just have to roll with it.
Okay. Well, I guess, we could just like stop TikTok or like relaunch it and then go back to it. Because YouTube's still running, right?
Yes. And
YouTube's the backstage, right?
I mean, they're both in tandem. TikTok relies on YouTube working. Yeah. If you guys are, so the show is live on TikTok and Twitter and YouTube and LinkedIn and Facebook and all that stuff. So if the TikTok audio is annoying, we can wrap up on YouTube. Emily, I know we're just about at the end, but I wanted to see if there was any more items off of this list that you wanted to grab for a final dissection. I was trying to let me look at it real quick because I feel like there was a couple that I wanted to highlight. Here's the bottom.
I didn't even see the whole risk or the whole list. Sorry, I was reading risk.
Oh, okay. This honestly, this specifically was kind of where I thought we could end, just because we're talking about all of these potential approaches, these issues with enforcement and all this kind of stuff. And we actually do have some amount of legal precedent beginning to be formed with regards to code as speech, specifically.
Yeah. Well, YouTube can't see this, right? So what are we reading?
Yeah, they can.
Oh, okay.
The only ones who can't see the screen is TikTok. So the thing I'm highlighting here is the regulatory approach, by either on one side extending securities and banking laws, but still making you be beholden to all of those, which does prohibit and severely limit your options for decentralized tech. Or on the other side, it's like a very minimal hands-off approach. You know, users are ultimately responsible. If someone does something malicious and nefarious, you go after them as an individual, not necessarily the platform. So a really good example of this would be Ross and the Silk Road. You know, is he, as the creator of a platform, ultimately responsible for what people did with the thing that he made? Tornado Cash is another good example. That is a crypto mixer. And then, you know, you could Telegram. Telegram was another one. The CEO of Telegram came under fire for the fact that people were using the protocol to message about crime in general. So
then someone is like absolutely losing it in the TikTok, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyways,
really if I could fix it, I would.
The irony of pardoning Ross Ulbright and then subsequently complaining about the fentanyl problem is gee, I wonder how that got in here. Yeah, so yeah, it's just like, to me, considering what happened with Trump coin, and I feel like we talked about Trump coin during and after dark, not in one of these episodes, or maybe we did, I don't remember. But if you think about the context of Trump coin and just how many laws were broken for Trump coin specifically, I don't think that the current administration is actually going to work on extending current securities and banking laws. I think that it's going to be much more code as speech, user responsibility, because that aligns with, the hundreds of millions of dollars that Trump has been able to extract through crypto in the past, 18 months. So I think we can kind of predict what angle we're going to go from there, and that, whatever is what it is. Sorry, I'm trying to cancel out of my TikTok.
You're good.
So I think it's pretty fair to predict that that's the approach that America is going to take. However, because crypto has become such a bipartisan issue, I think once what actually happened becomes better understood by the left-leaning Congress people, they're going to be pissed. I don't think that it's actually well understood exactly how this happened, right? I think they can see the amount of money that was extracted because that's been published in newspaper articles over and over again.
Yes.
Yeah. But what they don't understand is the mechanics. And the mechanics are what makes it even more illegal. Because I feel like I might have thought about this and didn't get to say it last time, but Elizabeth Warren actually proposed legislature around, presidential behavior for investments, ability to make money while you're in office, conflict of interest, all of that, to the same degree that congressmen have. And it got shut down. But because that's not currently in place, I think it's made all of this stuff, especially because basically meme coins were ruled to be not a security. He got away with all of it, except it was a tremendous amount of, basically a front running, self-dealing, essentially rigging the game so nobody else but the Trump coin team could win.
Yeah.
And they continue to win.
Yep.
It's still worth almost $5.
Now, I think that this one is actually particularly interesting because not only do you have the idea that, a platform was used to do something nefarious or malicious where maybe that wasn't the intent, or there is a way to use it, altruistically, but also just, now the nuance enters the conversation within who is using it to do something that may not necessarily, there's the idea that the thing was illegal, but like, why is something illegal is also important. So, the idea of like creating a meme coin and advertising it and profiting from it could be illegal, regardless of who does it, depending on how do you sell the thing. What kind of promises are you making to a potential investor before you do the thing? Are you financially motivating or incentivizing someone to purchase a thing? Does it fail the Howey test? All of these things can be true. But then also the fact that the person is a public official who is leveraging the power of an office or a position that they were appointed to or elected to self-profit is also illegal. Like, I just think back to the time when I was active duty. Every year you take a whole litany of government mandated training, and one of those things is about gifts and incentives and like leveraging the power of your position to get stuff. We are prohibited from accepting gifts or really anything from anybody because we are in the military. And people in appointed positions or elected positions also cannot use the power of their office or their whatever to convince people to do things. And this fell into every single one of those categories at once because it was the office of the president. It was the name of an extremely well-known, very polarizing figure. And on top of it, there was just kind of this implication that because of the profile and notoriety of the individual leading it, it was just going to be huge. And there was nothing done to combat that or to like set the stage appropriately. So not only was it a conflict of interest, a misuse of office and power, also definitely failed a number of different prongs on the test to see whether or not something is like an illegal securities offering, blah, 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 blah. There was like illegal things happening on 12 different fronts.
And yeah,
not to mention the ethical implications, which may not be outright illegal, but like are concerning nonetheless.
Isn't it crazy how like back in our childhood, a president got impeached for lying under oath about whether or not he had an affair?
Imagine.
That's crazy.
Simpler times. Emily, are there any other things on the list that you wanted to hit before we call it a day?
Can we peek back at the list?
Absolutely.
You're ahead of me. Look at you. Well, I think it's pretty clear who this serves best: institutional investors, wealthy users, incumbents versus unbanked descendants, sovereignty advocates, and all of the legislature that we've had and like the regulatory action that we've had is exclusively for institutions, wealthy individuals, and incumbent candidates, which is like, man, I don't know honestly, when the dream died.
That is a really good one to end with because, okay, so just on our way out the door here, my final thought will be about this idea of capturing the value. So, okay. The reason I feel strongly about this is because all too often people use the idea that we are quote unquote early to something as a way to sell hype and excitement about getting more heavily involved with it than perhaps you're comfortable being. And I'm sure everyone has seen at least an example of this in recent memory.
Wow, I love emotional blackmail.
Right?
Thanks. I'm really uncomfortable.
It all comes down to the idea of who is actually standing to... What's the incentive structure at work? Who is actively profiting from the thing? I feel like, a really good example of this would be this concept of the new world order money system, great reset, whatever. What's always at the center of that is like all of this ISO 20022 stuff as like one trendy topic. And the idea there being like, hey, why not position yourself in a whole bunch of these assets, or some of them, or one of them? Because then you can front run all of these giant institutions who are going to have no choice inevitably but to use it. And it's just, it's wrong on so many levels because, first of all, there's like this idea of secrecy. You're not being subtle. It's being broadcast on the internet. It's silly to think that multi-billion-dollar corporations are not aware that exists. Like if you ask executives at Ripple if they're aware of what the social media sentiment and, interpretation and impression of them is, they are aware. I promise they're aware. So in that sense, right, that can be used against you. So it always has to come back to who actually stands to profit and what makes you think that is going to change. How is the thing that you're interested in, how is it built? How is it built in with regards to who makes the money, who controls the money, who gets access to the money before it comes to you, kind of a thing. Who controls, how much money is involved, on and on and on and on. So yeah, definitely worth thinking about. And I think, what I was going to say earlier, this just reminded me, it is such a uniquely crypto phenomenon that people are so emotionally invested into specific assets in this space that they resist the learning of potentially troubling information about things that they're investing in. And in no other investment would that ever hold water. Imagine a company that you were invested in as a shareholder. You owned stock in company XYZ, and all of a sudden someone broke a story about something awful and horrendous happening at that company that you knew was terrible for any number of reasons. And you were like, I don't care. It's still going to be the next big thing. I don't want to know about it. And you're just trying to hurt my investment by saying it. It's such a uniquely crypto idea that you just.
I don't think it is uniquely crypto. I think it is a uniquely modern American idea where no matter what, the information is that you're given, and this isn't even confirmation bias. It's like the inverse of confirmation bias, where if you're given information you don't like, it's not true. And if you're given information you do like, regardless of truth, it is true. And that is just a absolutely wild phenomenon to watch at this point, because you see it every single day, right? Like this, fake news. Fake news was coined to deny actual data-backed news. Like, where are we? It's crazy to me, especially because it's like, how are these people getting along in their day-to-day life? Are they going to the grocery store and are they saying this, the apples are $1.99 a pound, but I only want to pay 25 cents a pound, and then they slam cash on the counter and walk out the door, which I guess you could get away with, but where else is this happening? I mean, we're seeing it in science and medical advancement, but are we seeing it in other places? No, my team did win the game. No, your team didn't win the game. And then they're arguing over it on Polymarket. Where else is this happening? But I do not by any means believe this is exclusive to crypto. I believe it is a mindset largely adopted in the American populace enough to elect a president, where they just can't accept what's happening or acknowledge the fact that they are making a conscious choice based on whether or not they like the information personally, not based on the channel the information comes through, the quality of the information itself, whether or not there's actually you have people denying the actual words written in the actual Constitution as if that's not an easy document to check against.
Yeah. Yes.
It's crazy. Or you'll give somebody statistics and they'll be like, oh no, those are left-wing statistics. It's that's not left-wing statistics. Those are statistics that ICE puts out themselves because they self-report. We're talking, right? No, but it's that's just a really recent example that I'm considering. But it's just I don't know. It doesn't matter who says it. It doesn't matter if they're aligned with you or not. It only matters if it's aligned with what you want to believe in your head. And are they soon going to believe that they can fly and jump off really tall buildings? It would not surprise me at all. I would be zero surprised.
Yep. It's the collision of cognitive dissonance and the Dunning-Kruger effect. It's easy to apply a blanket of distrust to everything except for the thing that makes you feel good, because in general everything pisses you off. So at least you have that to cling to. It's like a coping mechanism mixed with just being misinformed in general. But then also, like I have spoken to people who have a genuine desire to do better fact checking or figure out even how to, and just like, I don't even know where to begin.
I think people are waking up.
I would hope so.
I do think people are waking up. If you want a crash course in how to fact check, one of my favorite podcasts, it's podcasters, I guess, is Michael Hobbs. And Michael Hobbs is like, I guess, one of the more like famous data nerds out there. And I think he used to write for the Huffington Post, but maybe he doesn't because he has so many, or doesn't anymore because he has so many like successful podcasts. But like basically, he and any of his co-hosts that he's with, I discovered him on a podcast called You're Wrong About, where they basically dissected, American myths or like misnomers and like looked at what actually happened and how this information was actually progressed. And then he also does one called Maintenance Phase, and it's about like fad diets. And they kind of go and they unpacked like, what's this telling you to do? What's the nutritional science behind it say? What's like the health science behind it say? All that stuff. But they're in every single one of these. Oh, and there's another one called If Books Could Kill. So like, but the thing is like in every single one of these different podcasts that he does, he's going through and they're taking the information that's being presented, sold to you. Literally, you are paying money for this information, and they're comparing it to, data from the Times, actual statistics, actual scientific method, and like literally reading through scientific research, right? Or like drug research, like all of this, trials, whatever it is, they're reading through it intricately and analyzing it. And, observing where they said, oh, we left out these people because they didn't fit the criteria because one of them went on a dog walk one day, or like whatever it is that like is ultimately super petty and should not be exclusionary data, but they're picking what data to exclude people by in order to make their hypothesis make sense. And this will happen even in the scientific reports. And the thing about scientific reports is that they're not very scientific at all, because the incentivization to get a peer review on a scientific report is garnering favor. So even if somebody writes a terrible report because like maybe they're losing their touch, the prestige of working with this person and being an intern for this person, researching with this person, whatever it is a huge unlock for your career. So people are willing to compromise their integrity in order to make a step in their career. So like it just like this stuff is just like cascades over and over again, and it's compounded to this point where we just like don't believe anything and everything is hearsay, but people are taking it as truth. And now we're like stuck in this fucking hellhole. We don't give a shit about anybody. It's gone nuts. Like, and ultimately what people are really upset about, and I've said this before, I'll say it again, is that they feel they didn't get what they were owed or they deserved or how hard they worked. They're getting slighted, and they're mad at everybody but the people who are doing it to them. That they have a civil right to change, and all you have to do is show up at the election booth at polling day and actually like spend a little bit of time giving a shit about what happens to you where you live.
Yeah, you've been slighted, or even worse, someone that you determine as being unworthy in any capacity got something that you believe they shouldn't have, which is just be angry at.
And the risk of one person getting what they might not deserve is worth punishing 99 people who do deserve it. Mm-hmm. It's worth punishing 1,010 people who do deserve it. If one singular person might not get what they deserve, like it's absolutely nutty to me. It doesn't make any sense at all, especially as the generation who complains about participation trophies. Like these things are entirely incongruent, and it's just like a complete lack of ability to understand how they're missing the plot. Like it is, I don't know, man. It's crazy. Like every time I think about it, I'm like, is there another one of those diseases going around? Is it lead in the ground? What's the one? There's another disease in the South that you get through like some sort of insect bite that like legitimately reduces your IQ by 15 points. I'm not making this up. This is real. Like it will legitimately harm your cognitive ability. Like, is there something like that going around that's making this happen? Or is it social infection? Because social infection is real, right? Like there's dancing diseases. There's some like isolated tribe in South America somewhere that the disease that's unique to them, or like the mental disease that's unique to them, is men will spontaneously believe that their dick fell off. And that is real. That is 100% real. It is a phenomenon. And it feels like that's happening.
Yeah, I mean,
should I look it up?
I tend to believe, especially in cases like this, that Occam's razor still carries water. And right now, it just really seems, kind of like we've been saying, there is an ever-growing realization that no matter what you do, you just are simply being prevented from being okay. And that just is breeding more and more and more anger, and you have to do something with it. And because the people who keep you where you are know that, they can channel it wherever they want, and then you're just going to unleash. And there's no thought. It's just a vibe. There's no data, just a vibe. This is
called Coro syndrome, by the way, with a K.
Interesting.
It's listed in the DSM-5.
All right. So this was, I'm excited to see, excited maybe is the wrong word, where the WEF ends. We will again cover it tomorrow morning on the morning show, the final of the week. Thank you to everyone for hanging out with us a little bit longer than normal, and for bearing with us as we transfer platforms. I still have no idea what happened, but we'll do a full shutdown and reset before After Dark tonight, and hopefully that clears whatever little phantom popped up into the machine. Emily, thank you as always for being here. I look forward to seeing more content from you over on TikTok specifically. And
oh my God, what should I do next? I was thinking about doing maybe USDT in light of all like this crypto Genius Act stuff. Maybe Justin Sun, because
I think Tron would be a good one. Yeah, Justin Sun and Tron would be an interesting one, especially because you could immediately tie it into the Trump meme because there was heavy involvement.
Dude, True is so much worse than Tron, but I mean they're all interrelated. But yeah, anyways, it's bonkers. It is an Ouroboros.
Thank you to everyone for hanging out with us. We will be back tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 p.m. Central for After Dark. Evan will be back, and then tomorrow morning we'll be here, same time, same place as usual, 7 a.m. Central, 8 a.m. Eastern for the final episode of the Rise Up Morning Show for the week. And then stay tuned, because I will put both on the Twitter and in Circle what we eventually land on here as far as the reframing of the time slot for trust issues, just to make it a little bit more accessible. And of course, the recording will still live on YouTube forever. And next week, actually, we'll go through a little bit more of the website that you set up, Emily. We didn't get a chance, and now
I know. But I am indexing the episodes to the website, so they're very easy to find.
100%. All right.
Oh, yeah.
Until next time.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone, for being here. We'll see you soon.